Welcome back, everyone. Good afternoon. It is a wet and very windy Sunday afternoon. This is an emergency live stream. Welcome back, everyone. Hundreds and hundreds, actually, no, thousands of you piling into the room already. And we're going to start this afternoon's live stream with a bit of a statement from me, if you like, or it's not really the right word, but let me open up in a somewhat unusual way. So breaking news this afternoon, everyone. News that is going to shock the British political world and in particular, of course, Reform UK after Elon Musk has called for Nigel Farage to resign his position as party leader, telling his millions of followers that Nigel is not the right man for the job. Now, I know that many of you will be a little bit confused this afternoon, possibly. Some of you might feel a bit disappointed and that you might feel that Nigel Farage is our last chance. But let me tell you something. He is not. The British people are bigger than any one man. And Nigel, I'm afraid, has proven himself to be a chancer and a backstabber over the last 24 hours, proving once again that he will throw anyone under a bus if he feels that it will benefit him and his party. He has underestimated us. He's underestimated Elon Musk. He's underestimated the anger of the British people. And worst of all, he's underestimated the love and respect that the working class in particular, but the masses, have for Tommy. That is his mistake, and his mistake alone. Well, along with Richard Tice. They alone have been responsible for their own downfall and no one else. And Nigel's supporters can moan all they like. We have been warning everyone for a very long time, including Nigel himself, that if he didn't come to the table with the people would start to look elsewhere. Now he knows that we're not joking, and he's found out the hard way that he is not the only one with ins to Elon Musk. General Flynn once said, country before self, a policy that we, and Tommy in particular, has always followed, and that I'm afraid Nigel has ignored. Richard, good afternoon. Monumental news.
Afternoon, Paul. I mean, I must say, I was in church this morning, and on the way out, I was talking to a guy, and he says, "Oh, what about all this with Nigel?" I says, "Nigel's gone." I says, "Nigel's finished." I says, "But mark my words, when we're dealing with the stakes now, he's not gone yet. Obviously, he's still in the party. He's still leader of the party. So it's one tweet. Is that going to end his political career? I think it will eventually. I don't think it's across the line yet, and I think I've got to be careful not to. No, in fact, stuff it. Do you know what? He deserves everything he's got coming to him. It's as simple as that. He deserves it because he has basically played politics with our country. He's played politics with a man's life. Tommy's sitting there in prison. This is why I'm so angry about this, right? Tommy's sitting there in prison. And instead of him, on Friday, when he was questioned by Chopper, he didn't have to say anything, right? He could have just sat there and said absolutely nothing. Said, well, Elon's his own man. He'll do his own thing. All he had to do was stop there, but he couldn't help himself. And he had to gloat, and he had to try and demonize and belittle Tommy. And by doing that, Paul, belittle. And this is why Elon's called this right. What Nigel Farage has done has belittled his core voter base. Because let's get it right. The vast majority of people that come to our events, that are part of the Uniting the Kingdom movement, that have signed the pledge, that are part of the Free Tommy movement, those people are Reform voters. And Farage, goodness knows why, deliberately set his face against them. And it reminds me of a story in the Bible. There's a book in the Bible called the Book of Esther. I'm going to tell you this quickly. And basically, there's a man called Haman, and he's plotting to destroy the Jewish people. And there's a freedom fighter called Mordecai. This is cut long story short. And he plots to have Mordecai and all the Jews assassinated. And he builds a massive set of gallows. And he's got the ear of the king. And he thinks he's top dog. And everything turns round in a day. And Haman is hung on his own gallows. Now, metaphorically, that is what Nigel Farage has done. He's become Haman. He's hung himself on his own gallows. I mean, to be honest with you, this is politically, this is monumental. I don't think there's any. I mean, we keep saying this, that this is a monumental day in politics, but this is massive because what Elon Musk may well have done this week, right? Elon Musk may well have single-handedly saved the United Kingdom from catastrophe. Because I'm telling you now, as you well know, Paul, thousands of people, Farage won't have seen it yet, but thousands of people are talking about setting up new parties or joining UKIP or doing this, that, and the other. People are sick of this. They're sick of the snobbery. And I tell you what, I'll be honest with you, Paul, if Farage goes, Tice goes, and Yusuf goes as well. Because these are the three men that have been causing all these problems at the top of reform. And do you know what, Paul? You called it right because you said reform could be saved. And I said, as long as Farage is involved, it can't be. But like you called it, the only way it can be saved now is for that evil, whatever you call it, trilogy or triumvirate or whatever you call it, those three men at the top of that party have to go because of the way they've taken that party in totally the wrong direction. We don't want the Tory party light. We want something that's new, that's fresh, that cares about the country, that cares about the working class.
Richard, we want reform, proper reform.
We want reform, proper reform. And do you know what, Paul? I'm going to say there's two men that can do this, I believe. The two men with the most integrity, the most intellect, the most charisma, and it's in the reform circle. It's Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib, and those two men need to step up to the plate. But I will give them both a warning, and I'll give them the warning now. If they do step up to the plate, they better welcome Tommy Robinson with open arms, warts and all. Look, we say it all the time, and Tommy says it himself. He's not pretending to be a choir boy. He's a street guy that's fought like a street fighter for the past 15 years for our country. And what's he got for his trouble? Bankrupted, relationships destroyed, prison. How many times we've lost count? That's what Tommy Robinson's done for his country. What's Farage ever sacrificed for his country apart from a milkshake in the face and someone throwing sand at him? Come on, So this is monumental.
Richard, further than that, demonized and dehumanized.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But listen, Paul, it's all failed. It's always failed, right? And every time they attack him, there was a guy, I'm not going to say the guy's name. He was a former soldier. I'm not going to say what regiment he's in. Way back when, and he was a very prominent ex-soldier, real, he had the bit of swagger about him, and he was getting a big following on the scene. And he attacked Tommy after the event we did in October 2017. He was gone out of the movement, out of right-wing politics in 10 seconds flat. And I said to Tommy at the time, because Tommy said he had, information on him and all the rest of it. I says, Tommy, you don't need to do anything. I says, because what will happen is he'll just disappear. You never take Tommy Robinson. If you're in the right of British politics, you never take on Tommy Robinson.
Don't take him on. Don't take him on.
Tommy doesn't have to do anything. Tommy doesn't have to do anything. You take him on publicly and you're finished. Now, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, it's like I've always said about Tommy. He's not the Messiah. He can be a very naughty boy, but he's the man. He's the talisman. I said that in a speech outside the Old Bailey one time. He's the talisman that will save this country. And I mean that. I mean, he has got and he's getting this week. We all said when you come out of prison, Tommy, you're going to be a statesman, right? This week is a total game changer, and this is the rock that Farage is falling on.
Richard, look, it's all. Look, I'm gonna. If I'm really honest with you, I don't take any pleasure in this. I've always wanted unity, and we are going to speak completely freely. We've spoke about it briefly before, but
yeah.
we had agreements in place with Reform UK before the general election, or at least I thought we did. The message was, can you get Tommy to back Nigel and support Reform before the election? Within an hour of that request, Tommy did just that. Because although he didn't actually believe in Nigel Farage, he sees the bigger picture. He is General Flynn, country before self.
Totally,
country before self.
Look,
Richard, sorry, there's a few people asking what we're actually talking about. Let me just for the let me have a look, see if I've got it. Have I got the latest tweet? Let me get it. Let me have a quick look. No, sorry, I haven't got the latest tweet, but basically it is what I said earlier, that Elon Musk has said that Nigel is not the right man to lead reform. He's not the man for the job. And I'm going to give you, Richard, I'm going to give you a very simple example now. And those watching, for anyone that doubts our motives, for anyone that just doesn't quite get it still, Nigel Farage has got carried away with himself. And here's a great example. Now, yesterday, they were live on YouTube. And during Nigel Farage's speech, the leader of Reform UK, he had 2,184 people watching. My counter up in the left-hand side now that covers YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, we have just under 10,000 people watching.
Yeah.
Nigel has never been able to grasp in his mind that we are the people, not he.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reality is about this, Paul. I'm not, it's not about Nigel. This is the thing, and it's not. To be honest with you, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's not even about Tommy. It's about the country, right? And that's what people have got to understand. I'm doing this. Like, you've given me a big platform, Paul. I kept myself not in the shadows. I was always making speeches. I was always out there publicly. But obviously, because you've had a good reach, you've helped me to increase my reach, and I'm very appreciative of that. But it's not for me. I don't give it. To be honest with you, all this movement has done is wreck my life. I'm being brutally honest with you. That's the truth. In all sorts of different ways, right? Financially, relationships, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of pain. But the truth of the matter is, your reputation. But the truth of the matter is, it's not about me. It's not about you. And Tommy's the same. Believe it or not, Tommy is one of the most humble people you'll meet. You know this, and it's not about any of us. We know that we have a very, very small window to save this country. And no disrespect to Nigel, right? I'm not going to dig him out, because at the end of the day, he's still leader of Reform. He hasn't resigned, and he might not resign. He might brass it out and and try and who knows? I mean, who knows? And there's going to be a fight back. He's not just going to give up Reform just like that. But the reality is that he is not I've said this. He is not the man to be Prime Minister of this country, and he won't be Prime Minister. I said this on Friday when I did my video. He won't be the Prime Minister of this country. Because what has to happen, Paul, is we have to bring UKIP in. We have to bring the SDP in. We have to bring Reform. We have to bring the Pledge. We have to bring Ben. We have to bring the right-wing Tories, because there has to be unity. And I'm not even just talking about on the right, because the SDP isn't particularly a right-wing party. I don't really think, why are you talking about the SDP? People like Rod Little are involved. Get people like Peter Hitchens involved. There's loads of big names that should be rallying to the flag. And I believe one of the reasons they're not is because of Nigel Farage. I've just frozen there. I don't know if you can still hear me. Is because of Nigel Farage. So to me, this is bigger than any individual. It's bigger than me. All of us, Paul, we could be doing things with our time that would make us money, would be far more fun. But the bottom line is, there's nothing else that we can do other than stand for our country and say, here we stand. We can do nothing else. We've got to stand until we get this job done.
Rich, you see, there's some people that, and unless I'm reading this wrong, if I'm reading this wrong, I apologise. But, Donna she says, I'm out. Goodbye. Well, Donna, what Nigel has done is not our fault. It's like, we didn't throw Tommy under a bus. We didn't upset Elon Musk. We haven't been opening our mouth, stabbing people that everyone respects in the back, Donna. So, unfortunately, I think you're going to have to maybe have a look at it with a bit of a wider lens.
Look, I mean, you're always going to lose people on the way, and it's not about personalities. It's really not. And I'm like I say, it's not a question of gloating. And Nigel Farage has not resigned from the leadership of Reform. But what he did on Friday was unforgivable in our movement. This guy's in, Tommy's in prison, right? I mean, if anybody listened to that call on Friday, right, And that much has happened this week, and I haven't even got making a video about that. But that call on Friday that really worried me. I'll be honest with you. And I mean, I know everyone's trying to put a positive spin on it and all the rest of it, but that call was a cry for help. He was saying, "I can't do 9 months in this flip and sell on my own. I need to be around people." Tommy's, basically a people person. He likes being around people. He's not the sort of person that wants to sit on his own. He's very, very active. So, it's about the worst torture they could put any man under, putting him on his own. And this will have given Tommy a massive boost in terms of his morale.
We can't say too much, but let's just say he's in a good mood today.
He's in a very good mood. He's in a very good mood. I think the words bouncing around his cell, laughing his whatever off came to mind. But there you go.
And not because of Nigel, but because of Elon.
Because what it is, Elon is standing with Tommy.
With Tommy, yeah.
And this is not. Let's get it right. Elon Musk isn't going to save the UK. Tommy's not going to save the UK. Nigel's not going to save the UK. The great British populace getting behind one entity that is absolutely dedicated to saving and doing what needs to be done. And that's the thing, Paul. And I'm sorry, what Elon said in that tweet was right. Nigel does not have what it takes. And that's become very obvious. And, listen, Nigel was retired and he was doing his media stuff. Maybe that's what he should do. Maybe he should just be the best media commentator. And he's brilliant at that. He's a great communicator. But get out of the way. If you're holding things back, Paul, if I'm ever holding things back, and there's times I have held things back and I've had to take a step back because I've done things wrong and I've said things wrong and I've, made mistakes in this movement. And if we're ever in a position where we're making mistakes and we're getting things wrong, we have to step out of the way.
And we pull each other up on it. Steve 1951 says he versely accused Tommy of being a grifter. Steve, exactly. You cannot do that. What's he supposed to do? Go and get a job in the local quick fit?
Yeah,
I mean what's he going to set up a local plumbing business?
Let's put this to bed once and for all, right? The reason Tommy has to make money, and he's bankrupt anyway, so he can't make money himself. But the reason he is employed by Urban Scoop is because it is completely impossible for him to even do his media on his own and make money out of it, because he's not allowed to make money because he's bankrupt. So he can't do anything. He has to rely on Urban Scoop basically paying him a salary, right, to survive. That's just the way it is. And if people have a problem with anybody in this movement that has given a lot and has given up a lot, actually wanting to be able to survive and feed their family while they're doing this full time, well, I've got a problem with them, to be honest with you. And I don't even want to entertain them or even think about them, because it's insidious attacking people for actually, having to get money. But that's another story. It's a complete.
Let me read this out, because I always like to read the criticism out as well as the praise. Massive Hero says, "Do you two clowns not realise Reform's membership is growing at a staggering rate? Campaign for UKIP. They're more for you." Look, let me just answer that very briefly. UKIP aren't for me. I can tell you that. They're not going to be for me. And let's have a look. Yes, I do realise that Reform's growth rate has been very good recently. I would question some of it potentially. There are questions to be answered about that. But listen, if that's your opinion, you're welcome to it. Thanks for watching.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing, people that hide behind pseudonyms that don't use their own names as well, and then start launching attacks on people. I don't even, they're not even worth commenting, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, the reality is, I mean, I think what we've got to realize is that Nigel hasn't resigned from the leadership of Reform because of this tweet. I think we've got to be realistic about that. He's still the leader of Reform, but it's not us that's gone after Nigel. It's Elon Musk, the most powerful man in the world.
I was just going to say, you have to worry.
We're just commenting on what's happened. If anyone's listening to my commentary, I have shared my doubts about Nigel because Inspector Clouseau, you know, you weren't the greatest detective. I've seen the films, okay? You weren't the greatest detective. But let me say this to you, Inspector Clouseau. I've been talking about Nigel for a long time because I have serious concerns about whether he's controlled opposition, whether he is the man for the job to save the country. It always seems to be the Nigel Farage show. Oh, I did this and I did that. It was my idea and this, that, and the other. It's not about Nigel. It's not about Nigel at all. There's plenty of other people that can step into his shoes far better. Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, as a scene on the screen. And I think this is the thing, Paul. Let's talk about bring back Ben.
We'll
If
do
Nigel
that. Sorry, Richard. Can we do that in just a sec? Let me just say to Inspector Clouseau, if Nigel Farage had have listened to us, this would never have happened. This would never have happened.
100%.
We have been telling them time and time again, just be quiet. Just don't say anything. You haven't got to say anything. Just be gentlemanly. Be a politician. Why is it that politicians can always be politicians and never answer a goddamn question when it suits them? But as soon as Tommy's mentioned, all of a sudden they let rip.
The other thing as well is, Paul, it's he's put a noose around his own neck totally unnecessarily, because Chopper asked him on whatever day it was, Friday, would you let Tommy Robinson join Reform? Tommy has as far as I know, last time I spoke to Tommy, he's no intention of joining any political party, because he's been there, done it, worn the T-shirt. He's not interested. He's not interested in joining UKIP. He's not interested in joining Reform. He's not interested in joining any party at the minute. He's wanting to build his cultural movement. Tommy's plan when he gets out of prison, as far as I know, is to finish off the Rape of Britain #6, right? To sort himself out, because he will need a downtime where he can relax with his family, have some fun with his family. The last thing on his mind is joining Reform or joining UKIP. He's not interested. That's what he said to me. He said, look, he says, basically what he wants to do is build a cultural movement, because he knows that culture leads politics. So, the whole thing is a debate that didn't need to happen. And yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous situation. Now, again, like I keep saying, I don't think Farage will just put his feet in the air and disappear. You're muted there, Paul. Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, I go back to what I said a minute ago, Richard. It's all of his own doing. It's no one else's fault. And for those that want to shoot the messenger, I did a video the other night, Richard. I had about 100 people unsubscribed from the channel. And I sat there and looked at it and I thought, wow. So, if the doctor comes round and tells you got something wrong with you, do you beat him up?
Pretty much. Well, that's it. That's it.
Joseph Henry is a new member. Thank you. Lady of the Manor. Elon cares for the UK more than the corrupt politicians. Thanks, Paul, for everything you do. Thank you, Lady of the Manor. Alan Dofflock, I think we should all be a lot more suspicious that we are of the fact there's been no media campaign against Nigel and Reform controlled oppositions. Barnett Nicola, it's all about class. Tommy has no posh voice. There's so much to that, isn't there? MC Legend, Happy New Year, Paul and Richard. I wish we could have had Tommy as leader of the opposition. It's saddening because I used to believe in Nigel Farage. I think a lot of us did. Helen of Crystals, nope. Rupert would get most farmers and rural voters too. Richard doesn't agree with that. That's fair enough. Joshua Steed, I said this before, Farage sits on the fence and waits to see which way the wind's blowing. He cares about himself only. The sacrifices Tommy has made, he deserves far more respect than he's getting. Thank you. Tracy, do a poll, Ben or Rupert? Well, I did a poll earlier on, Ben or Nigel. Let me give you the latest on that. You can probably see it better than me, to be fair. Let's have a little look. But currently, he's sitting at, we have 76% say Ben Habib over Nigel Farage. It was 84%. We have nearly 14,000 people
But I
watching
mean, the other,
live.
I want to say something, Paul. Right? I mean, there is a way that Nigel can get off the hook here. Very, very simply, you can just say he's wrong.
Yeah.
And just put his hands up and say, you know what? I've read the room wrong, guys. I'm sorry to the British public. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Elon, who was potentially going to give me a lot of money. And I called it wrong. Um, you know, and apologise to Tommy for the way he's
Um,
demonised him for the past 7 or 8 years.
well, you know what he could do? He could get in Parliament tomorrow and call for his freedom.
He could, he could, he could, he could
Ground
indeed.
control, we need Trump. Farage is Mr. Bean. Emma is a new member. Thank you. Eddie Lee, Farage should show a bit of humility. He thought he was untouchable when pick taken next to Musk at Mar-a-Lago. Tice is also a twat. God bless you guys. And Tommy, thank you, Eddie. Really appreciate that.
I mean, what it is, Paul, it's been completely unnecessary division. And that's the problem. I think what people have got to realise, and again, I apologise for being a bit short with some of your viewers there, Paul. They might be my viewers as well. So, but the reality is the reason that we've been a bit short. We've been, trying to build a grand coalition. I've said it before. I'm on the NEC of UKIP, on the board of UKIP, and I think if we could build something from UKIP, SDP, I keep saying it, the Reform, the Tories, and build something really, really good with the best people in the country on the right. Get the Douglas Murrays in, get the Matt Goodwins in, and let them stop being frigging sniffy. Let them put away their snobbery because they've spent a few years in university. Wind your necks in. You got the same flesh and blood as we've got. I don't respect any man for what his education is. What I respect them for what they do and what they believe. So let's just put that aside because we could have a great thing going here, and that's why I'm frustrated about it, and that's why I'm sick of us getting dug out for attacking Farage. Because Paul, as you know, my opinion on Farage has not changed one bit. I'm not his greatest fan, but at the end of the day, if he was willing to show some humility and apologize for what he's done wrong. If I do something wrong, if I screw up, I apologize either privately or publicly. It's simple as that, and I've done it. So why can't Farage do that? That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not. And now this would all go away if he went. Do you know what? You're right, but I think he's got a real problem now because Musk has basically said that he's incompetent. He's not up to the job.
And well, I think he underestimated. I mean, look, he's insulted Elon's intelligence, really. Because he was implying that he hadn't done his homework.
Yeah.
And he's clearly done more homework than Nigel. The British Patriot, thanks. Have you seen June Slater's video today? I have. I've watched about half of it. Righty, 66, Farage is a Wayne. Ben is the man for the job. Paul O'Keefe, naive people are asking Tommy's movement to roll over and not to speak their minds and allow Farage to mouth innocent Tommy. What sort of unity is that? It's one built on a foundation of sand. Exactly. Now I did a video last night. I can't remember what it was called now, but talking about exactly that, about fake unity. Go and watch it later. Fake unity is not a real unity. Bungee jumper, cheers. We need someone who the British people trust to lead us. Someone like Kate Bush to lead us. To be our modern Joan of Arc. Thank you. KG Tiggs, Farage is not Prime Minister material. Cheers, Billy. Really appreciate that. Last one for the moment. Forever Marvel. My heart broke for Tommy when I listened to his call. It's evil what they are doing. Elon and what's going on will definitely keep his spirits up. Well, we know for 100% fact that it is. Where does Richard? Where do Reform go from here? Where do they go from here?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Paul. I think this is a really good thing that Elon's done, right? And this isn't this. I'm not saying this to basically annoy.
Rich, sorry, is this the start of the beginning or the beginning of the end for Reform?
Well, I think it could be the start of something incredible. I think it could be the start of something really, really amazing because the truth of the matter is that If Nigel was to show the humility and the fortitude to actually not resign but to actually apologize, that would go a long way to basically saving the situation that he's got himself into. I genuinely think that, Paul. I think if he apologized, I think that would make all the difference. Do you know what I mean? So
Well,
so
look,
I think that's the first thing. But if he doesn't apologize, I said this on Friday. I said he's gone. As soon as he launched, as soon as he wasn't reading the room at all. And politically, you know, people do not understand the iconic nature of Tommy Robinson, right? And they don't understand that there's something. He is one of us. Tommy is one of us. He is us. He represents us, right? We are all, I said it years ago when Tommy was put in prison in 2018. I made a speech at Speaker's Corner, and it was that line from Spartacus. And I said, there's a film where they're asking who Spartacus is, and they all stood up and said, "I'm Spartacus." And I said, then that's what we've got to do. We've got to say, "I'm Tommy Robinson." And to a great extent, we are all Tommy Robinson. And we all, when he gets persecuted, we all feel
yeah.
that pain of his persecution, right? And I'll be honest. When I first started getting to know Tommy, right, I had a few doubts about him here, like everyone does, a few doubts about him here and there. But the more I've got to know him over the years, the more I've seen him, not just as an activist who can get into trouble from time to time, but as a good man and as a friend and as a genuine person. When you meet him, you're meeting someone who's genuine. And I've never heard him, right? I've never heard him dig someone out behind their back. I've never heard him do that. I mean, maybe he does, but I've never heard him do it. He's a man of integrity. What I'm saying, he's a man of integrity, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll go for a couple more supers. Then I want to ask you about the grooming gang issue. Irene H, thank you. Does Elon own 75% of Reform? No. Rob Quince, thank you. Signing up for a party doesn't mean you vote for them. Manchester C, great comment. Fatal error. Nobody tells Musk he is thinking wrong. Farage and Tice are the authors of their own demise.
Yep.
I'm glad some people get it.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of you do. That is spot on the money.
If you've ever worked for a real, sort of driven leader, right, that's successful, you don't go and tell him he's wrong, right? If you want to suggest something to him, you suggest something. You don't publicly go on TV and say, "Oh, well, I'll have a word with Elon when I get to Mar-a-Lago." Really? How's that worked out for you, Nigel? It's not the way it works, And I think, yeah, man. But I mean, you were asking where does reform go, and I think that's a really important question. I think if Nigel doesn't apologise and doesn't say, "Look, I got this wrong about Tommy," because of his ego, I don't think he will. I think what will happen is there will be a lot of discontent in reform. And I think what Nigel will try and do, Paul, I think he'll try and brass it out. I think he'll try and front this. And he'll probably waste about a year or 6 months trying to push back, right? And he'll be having all these little minions going and talking to people and trying to dig dirt on Tommy and all the usual stuff that these people do. That's what I think will happen. Because I don't think Nigel's got the sense or the humility to apologise. The best thing he can do is apologise, because then it goes away straight away and he can stay leader and he can crack on.
Well, if he doesn't do that, my opinion, yeah, go on. I don't think he'll have the minerals. I don't think he'll have the minerals for the fight.
Well, I mean, the fight is going to be brutal now. The fight is going to be absolutely brutal, because the only thing he can do now is double down on it and try and really go for Tommy. And that would be a disaster for reform. That would destroy reform. I think that would tear reform apart. If he doesn't back down, or he either apologises or resigns. If he doesn't, reform's finished. So that's what reform's looking at, right? Then what happens? Well, if reform completely implodes, there's UKIP waiting in the wings. There's Ben Habib sitting as an outlier. We don't know what Ben's going to do. I don't want reform to collapse, to be honest with you, because I think
not at all.
And that's me as a UKIPper, right? And what I would like to see is Ben Habib coming to Reform as a leader or deputy leader with Rupert. I
Rupert
think
Lowe.
Rupert
Yeah.
and Ben would be a dream team. You know, they've got far more savvy. They read the room far better, and they seem like more people. I mean, Rupert was ran a football club, so he knows
by the way,
the working class are like, Paul.
By the way, Richard, these are both men that do not need to be involved in politics, that are successful business people in their own right and are in it for the right reasons. MC Legend, I feel guilty for formally agreeing with Nigel. Don't feel guilty because he's pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes, myself included at times. JF, Tommy was appointed as an advisor of UKIP by Gerard Batten 6 years ago, and it didn't help UKIP with any seats. Why should we assume any different result? If
let me jump on that straight away. I'll tell you why. It didn't work, because Farage sabotaged it. That's why it didn't work. Okay. And listen, Tommy has no interest in reform. He's not trying to join reform. He's not trying to influence reform. He wants to build a cultural movement. The problem here is that Nigel did a full frontal assault on a position he didn't need to attack.
Yeah.
He could have just said nothing. This is all of Nigel's. This isn't to do with Tommy.
It's not the first time he's got history with this, including with Gerard Batten, who is one of the greatest men, in my opinion, that never was prime minister in this country.
Do you know, I was talking to Jared about this last night, and we were kind of smirking about, because we could see it coming. We could see it coming. We could see what was going to happen. Now it hasn't happened yet. I don't think Nigel's probably understood the gravity of the situation that he's plunged himself into. But it had. Do you know what, Paul? This had to happen. There had to be this breaking of this snobbery.
And the earlier the better. The earlier the better.
The earlier the better. So now, if Reform can't get their act together, they will implode, and then all bets are off. You know, and we'll see what happens then. But I think the reality is that Nigel again, as this is in Nigel's hands. He can sort this out. If he apologizes, it goes away. It's as simple as that. But it's got to be a genuine apology, and it's got to be an apology that says, do you know what? See, Paul, Richard, if you want to join Reform, you can join Reform. I don't want to, personally, but I mean, you know, if you want to join Reform, you can join the Reform Party. So all these silly rules that they put in to try and vet people, where they end up getting hope not hate, basically doing their vetting for them, which was pretty much what happened. I mean, come on.
What a joke.
And this has been my problem. And as you know, Paul, back before the last election, I didn't want to recommend people to vote for Reform because I knew it would give the Labour a landslide. I knew it would give the Labour Party a landslide. So I thought it's better to have a very slim Tory majority, you know, where they're having to rely on independent MPs, unionist MPs, maybe it's the odd Reform MP, one or two. But I didn't want Reform to basically destroy the Conservative Party, much as I hate the Conservatives. Because we've now got a communist government running our country. Mm-hmm. We've got extreme left-wing nut jobs running our country. And that's on Farage as well.
Let's have it right. Reform pretty much stabbed us in the back after the general election. Yeah. JF, I hope that answered your question there, because Richard was heavily involved with UKIP back in the day with Gerard Batten.
I set the deal up. It's as simple as I set it up. You know, I set the deal up between the football lads, the veterans, and then brought Tommy in sort of March 2018. Then surprise, surprise, guess what happened? The state locked Tommy up as soon as it looked like there was going to be a possibility of him getting somewhere. So, you know, it was a long process and it took a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I said never again until the election. And I joined UKIP this year after the general election because I just thought this is a disaster that we're looking at with a Labour government. And again, I couldn't trust Reform because of Nigel Farage. That's why I joined UKIP again, because I couldn't trust Reform, because I don't trust Farage, you know, and it's because of what he's done in the past.
What he's done in the past, history, utter woke nonsense. So, it's not too late for Nigel. If he realises his mistakes, he must listen, condemn his treatment in prison and stop attacking him. Fat chance.
Totally right. Exactly right.
Stephen Squire, stick up Nick Tanconi in Farage's seat. Simon Dixon, thank you, Simon. I said it in my live yesterday, which YouTube has taken down. Nigel won't deal with the Islamists, and he's shown he cares more about the M vote than the British patriots. Nigel said, we can't alienate the Muslim vote. Why would they take that down?
Well, I mean, this is the other problem, Paul. I mean, look, I mean, what Elon's doing at the minute, and I must admit, I am worried. There's one thing I'm worried about with X, and there was, and Elon posted this yesterday. There was something about that they want to avoid too much negativity on the platform, and I hope that doesn't mean they're going to go down the censorship route again. We need to just hope that we can still speak freely and openly on X, because we can't on YouTube, Paul. I mean, this has gone out to YouTube and to X. We know there's things that we cannot say on YouTube that we can say on X, right? And I hope Elon doesn't go down the road of censoring us and stopping us, because you don't know who's advising Elon either, because he can't be across everything at all times. He's not omnipresent. He can only deal with.
I would imagine he's got a lot going on in his life.
Oh man, I mean, how does he?
Can you imagine?
Know what? Paul, I was thinking this morning. I was thinking, if you look at the way he's been tweeting this stuff, right? I mean, Tommy has got the attention of the most powerful man in the world. He's gonna build a colony on Mars. Do you know what I mean? I can think of a few people I wouldn't mind sending to that colony, and one of them's sitting in the Reform offices at the minute, feeling very uncomfortable. But the reality is,
Richard, we've got more big breaking news, because Nigel Farage has replied to Elon Musk's tweet, and it reads as follows. Well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I'm afraid I disagree. My views remain that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. There you go. Well, never sells out his principles.
Well, look, I mean, again, he's not reading the room. Nigel, read my lips.
Bye-bye, Nigel. Bye-bye.
No. Nigel, read my lips. Tommy doesn't want to join your party. That's it.
Exactly.
You've probably blown the chance for a massive amount of funding coming to your party by your arrogance and your lack of ability to understand where the British public are.
He's asking us to take. He's asking us to take sides, and there's only one winner.
Yep. He probably. Do you know what? Nigel might have a great future in the Liberal Democrats. Him and Ed Davey, I'm sure they do great at the next election.
David
he seems to have a great lot of time for the Liberal Democrats.
He does. David Crosby, Trump and Musk will dump Farage. Thank you, Sean. No more supers, guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of them. I want to try and get into the regular chat as well. Nearly 16,000 people watching. Sean Delaney, now you know why Nigel did not fully democratise reform. If he can't be the centre forward and the stand that he takes his ball home, yeah.
Well, he's just scored a massive own goal, hasn't he?
Hasn't he just? Chris Fox, I was pro Farage, but after seeing him with his fox hunting gang, which I utterly detest, I've dumped that idea. If we could only have Ben, Tommy and Musk. And Rupert. Rupert's a good guy. Let's have a look. Linda, thank you very much, Linda. I agree with you both, but the problem we have is the mainstream media are loving this, and this will fuel this row to push the establishment's narrative. Inadvertently, Elon has created the perfect division to take some heat off of their corruption. Linda, do you know what? I get that. I get what you're saying, but here's the thing. And I keep saying this to anyone that will listen. We've got to look past the mainstream media. We'll take them on at a later date. And we will take them on and we will beat them. Look at their viewing figures. They're dropping through the bottom of the floor. Craig Harris, Elon has seen the character of Farage.
Let me come back. Let me come back on that one, Paul. Just slow it down a bit. Let me come back on that one.
So Linda's, thank you, Linda.
I think and again, thanks for saying that you agree with us both. But the reality is that Elon, in doing this, is pushing the agenda, right? He's basically pushing people to make decisions and to take sides. That's not division.
Richard, sorry, but I've got to interrupt you because this is just going on as we're live. Elon Musk has replied to Nigel Farage, and it simply says, once again, Free Tommy Robinson now.
Big up, as Wendell would say, big up Elon.
I mean, look, I tell you what, if you didn't love Elon Musk before, you got to love him now. But he's spot on. Shut up, Nigel. Apologise or keep quiet.
Let's forget about Nigel. In the last week, Elon Musk has called for Jess Phillips to go to prison. He's called for Keir Starmer to resign. He's called on the King to dissolve Parliament. And do you know what? Right? And people are saying, oh, what does he know about British politics? Do you know what? That's what should happen. Because we are sitting with the most corrupt, vile, disgusting individuals running our country. And this is where Nigel isn't up for the job, because this is what the job is, Paul, right? You get the Labour out, you get a massive landslide of people that believe what we believe. You get a new civil service, you sack everybody that is infiltrated with the woke mind viruses, as Elon calls. You get them out. You get them out. And anybody that was involved in covering up this scandal, and I was there when we made the films, right? So I've spoken to these girls. This is something I do know about. A lot of people say I don't know about stuff. Well, I do know about this because I spoke to these girls.
Rich, just choose your words carefully, yeah, with the R word, please. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, because I spoke to these girls and I know exactly what happened to them. Right. And the reality is that's what Elon has been talking about all week. The Tommy thing, yes, he obviously feels very passionately that Tommy should be free, as we all do. But let's get it right, Paul. The reality is that these girls that have been victims of these savages for the past 40 years, you cannot even begin to understand what they've been through and what they've suffered. And having spoke to them and sat with them and seen the pain, and then, I watched those films back the other day. Do you know what I mean? It's just the whole thing's despicable, and I think people should go to prison. So I think if Keir Starmer failed to do his job, and it can be proved that he failed to do his job, senior police officers, I believe it's a criminal offence to ignore an offence. Junior police, I don't care who you are. If you were involved in allowing this to happen, you should go to prison for a long time. And do you know what you should go to, Keir? A category B prison. That's the sort of prison you should go to, or maybe it's a cat A, because and this is how serious this is. Serious this is, because we sleptwalk into this, Paul.
Richard, we need to have this is just developing as we. I mean, Tommy's actual admin team has posted Reform need to have Ben Habib as their leader. Unlike Nigel, Ben will not toe the political or media establishment. He recognises the problems we face and he's not afraid to speak his mind. Ben would introduce real policies that will work for the British people. So Tommy's team officially backing Ben Habib. The wonderful Liam Tufts has just tweeted, the Division Reform UK have caused with their political snobbery and denouncement of Tommy is beyond belief. So there you go. Anyone that is blaming us or anyone else for this division, you know who to blame. And it's not us. Let's have a little look. Stephen Hunt. Where are we? Sorry, User, says Elon has made another post saying free Tommy now. You was there before me. Thank you for that. Stephen Hart. Elon is far more intelligent than Farage. So I wouldn't trust Elon's judgment. So I would trust Elon's judgment every time. Ben should have been Reform's first choice. Epic 2000. Elon and Farage have been hitting the news all week. The publicity works in our favour. Even if it's apparent infighting, long may it continue. Bit by bit, we are saving Britain. I absolutely agree with that. Linda, how many people would turn out to the march organised by Farage as opposed to the July march by Tommy? Tommy has a very large following and respect.
Well, let's jump on that as well, Paul, because what we need to do is get people out on the 1st of February.
Yeah.
Because if Elon Musk is, if the richest man in the world and one of the most powerful men in the world, Donald Trump's right-hand man, I mean, apparently, Trump and Musk are like, father and son. They're even going and watching their rockets getting blasted off to space and all the rest of it. So, the reality is Elon's given a lot of time and attention to this. Well, I'm going to appeal to every single person. Two things. First of all, go to the Urban Scoop website, and I want you to give some money to Urban Scoop so that they can pay for this thing on the 1st of February, because the coffers are not full. Because when Tommy's away, people don't play. The reality is people need to support Urban Scoop massively. The other thing is that people need to get to London for the 1st of February, because this event is going to send a massive, and this is what we haven't been talking. Let's forget about Farage for a minute, Paul. Let's get stuck into these scummy, like one of the people said earlier, that scumbag who's running the country at the minute. He needs to go, and we need to put the maximum pressure on him. So we need tens of thousands of people in central London on the 1st of February to stand for Tommy, to stand for the girls who've been savaged, to stand for the political prisoners, to stand for Peter Lynch, and to stand for this current corrupt government getting booted out of power at the nearest opportunity. And Paul, do you know what? See if Farage actually does the right thing. Right, if Farage actually changes his mind and changes his tune, I don't think he will. He's obviously going to try and double down. See if he changes his tune and he either leaves or he apologises, then Reform and the rest of the centre right coalition could take power in this country. There's no doubt about that.
Wow, Elon Musk has just tweeted again 8 minutes ago, for anyone doubting the severity and depravity of the mass gang assaults, won't use the word, of little girls in Britain, go to the source material and read the court transcripts. I did. It is worse than you could possibly imagine. It looks like Elon may have retweeted Ben Habib, who has also been tweeting this afternoon. Ben is on it as well. Lady of the Manor, look at Elon's message sent 2 minutes ago. Thank you. That's probably the one you were referring to. Vander Fulks, God bless Elon, watching from the beginning. Thank you, Vander. Matty Howard, Elon just made Tommy Robinson's story true. Absolutely. Marion Williams, no more supers, guys, because I'd like to get into the regular chat before we go. Didn't Nick Buckley say a month ago that the leader of the coalition had not yet shown himself? Did indeed. Nick's a great guy. Gareth Evans, Farage has Trump's backing, but he throws it away by continuing to insult us. Choose your battles. Furious with Farage. We need to get the hashtag Bring Back Ben going, guys. So if you've got any sort of social media account, hashtag Bring Back Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking on Twitter there. Elon retweeted, this was 7 hours ago, but he retweeted one of Visegrad 24's films, the one he did with Tommy on Facing Parliament. I don't know if I think you've probably seen it. And that's had 15.6 million views since this morning. I wonder how many views the pitiful interviews that Richard Tice got when he was running around talking to Trevor Phillips and so on and so forth. So there's a headwind here, Paul. We've got to lean into it. We've got to really do our best to make this work for the country. And I think it's just so important. By the way, if you're watching this on Twitter, do us a favor, retweet these videos on Twitter, because obviously we want to make sure that people are actually seeing what we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, look, I think the whole thing, that now Elon has seen what happened to those girls and understood some of it. And I'm going to tell you a story. Okay, there was one. It's not in the films. One of the girls, and it can't be verified. That's why we didn't put it in the film. But I'll tell you the story anyway. I'm not going to name the girl. She was being abused, and she said to one of her abusers, and he's in the first film actually. This guy, she said to one of her abusers, "Unless you stop abusing me, I'm going to go to the police." And he got her in his car, kidnapped her, and he took her to a seat at an undisclosed location, took her into a kitchen, and opened a chest freezer. And in the chest freezer was the body of a little teenage girl, frozen. Now, you can't verify that, okay? Obviously, they're not going to leave the body there once they've done that. But that's what that girl told us. And the girl didn't lie about anything else. So why would she lie about it? That's the sort of depravity what we're dealing with in this country, Paul. And this is why I get so angry about all this. And the people that are jumping on the bandwagon now, and you know the difference between Tommy's films and everybody else's films, right? Tommy allowed those girls to tell their full stories. If you watch them, they're extremely graphic, right? That's why they got banned from YouTube. They're extremely graphic. I'm not going into the details on this video. They went into the videos of the extreme violence of a sexual nature and other, right? They went into very, very great detail. But as well as that, do you know what Tommy did that nobody else did? He went to those scumbags that had done that, right? And he stood there with a small team around him and filmed them and stuck it on them and said, this girl has made this allegation about you. What do you have to say about it? And do you know what they all said? You're a racist. You're a racist, Tommy. That was their answer. That's been the media's answer. And not one of those people has come back to Tommy and even served him with legal papers. And you know what these people are like for going after you for defamation? They'd have a pot of gold that they could get their hands on to sue you. Not one of them came back and tried to sue Tommy.
Mate, it makes your blood boil. Mons, thank you. Distribute Tommy Masks to everyone for the 1st of February. Richard, this is the thing, right? Look, mate, it's very difficult when you start thinking about that, them kids and that. That's thrown my mind now.
I'm going to tell because it's important. Because personal stories are really important. I was in a pub in Telford with a friend, and we'd been doing filming, and the bar manager came up to us and he said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Oh, we're making a film." I said, "What's the film about?" I said, "It's about the grooming scandal." And he went quiet, and I thought, "Oh, is he a lefty? Is he going to start digging us out?" And he come back about 5 minutes later. He says, "When I was a kid," he says, I was going to meet this girl for like a prom date, right? You know, when you go to the prom, right? He's going to meet this girl, and he stood there and he waited and waited for hours, and he really fancied this girl. And he plucked up the courage to ask her out on a date to the prom. She was a real nice looking girl, right? And she never turned up. He never saw her again. Because obviously it was the end of school, so they all kind of went their separate ways, and she avoided him, ghosted him, whatever, and he couldn't understand it, right? And then he met her 10 years later, and he said to her, "Why didn't you make it to the prom that night?" And she said, "I was waiting for you, right? I got there early, and I was waiting for you, and a car of Pakistani men pulled up. They dragged me into the car, they took me away." I'll not say the word because we're on YouTube and I know that I don't want to get your channel in any way thing. You can imagine what they did to her. All of the men in that car, to that little, whatever she was, 16-year-old girl, whatever age it is we didn't do proms when I was at school. You just went to the school disco, but you know what I mean? But so this week, this little girl was dragged away and attacked. And that was just one guy that ran a pub. That was his story. How many other cases were just, if you know how big Telford is a tiny little rural town, right? So what's it like in Birmingham? What's it like in Middlesbrough? What's it like in Bradford? What's it really like in Rochdale? And yes, it's happening right now. When we were in Telford, we were given the details of the houses. We just didn't have the resources to watch them all the time. And we had surveillance cars outside those houses with hidden cameras and all sorts, but we just didn't have the resources to dig into what was really happening. And yes, we did film young girls going into those houses and not coming out for hours.
Gerard Batten, Rich, Gerard Batten has just messaged me, which is nice. He says, Tommy doesn't ask to be a member of Reform. I think he'd sell just for Farage, saying he shouldn't be in solitary confinement and moved to an open prison.
Yeah. I mean, Farage could still make this go away. He could make it go away.
Let's get through the rest. Let me get through the rest of the supers, guys. No more today, please. Thank you for all of those, because I want to talk more about the grooming scandal and where I believe it should go. Claire, thank you so much. Tigaroo says Labour and Tory will love this divide. They will. Blame Nigel Farage. Fez, I am Tommy. Chris, thank you very much, Chris. Camo Films. Nigel needs to watch the Tommy film and decide, support the truth or the lies. Elon just said, the more you investigate, the worse it gets. UK Gov, mind-blowing. Yeah. Future World Machines. Farage is the majority shareholder who forms, so only he can choose the leader. But things can change. Greg Bill. Farage is a white-collar, safe space rebel. He is fine creating a stir in Parliament, but he hasn't got the guts to stick his neck out. Garden Room, thank you. Rupert and Ben. But if Nigel has the ear of Trump, I'm not sure how much longer he'll have the ear of Trump. I tell you, I can see Donald Trump putting Nigel Farage right or getting shot. Because I think that Trump and Musk will be closer than Trump and Farage. Forever Marvel, Farage has responded to Elon. Thank you. We've now seen that. Gray, Tommy's phone call the other day broke me, Paul. You know, I'm a big reform man. I can't anymore. I like reform, but I love Tommy. Thank you, Elon. Stewie, come on, boys. This smells like a hoax. It's definitely not a hoax. Linda, I've supported Nigel since Brexit. However, since this despicable attack on Tommy, no more Nigel for me. A couple more. Dazza, cheers. Nigel posted this a minute ago. Well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but yeah, we've read that one. Thank you so much, Dazza. Sorry I'm late with that. Cheers, Jez. And walk with Daz. Sonia is a new member. Appreciate that too. Let's talk a little bit more about the grooming gangs, because this has been coming for years. It's long overdue. Long overdue. The consecutive Conservative governments are just as much to blame. Labour are just continuing the uni-party trend of ignoring it or trying to just brush it under the carpet. I said in a tweet earlier on that if I was involved in any of these gangs, if I was involved in any of the cover-ups, and that includes a lot of the pension-chasing police officers, I'd be on a plane and out of here tomorrow, because I think their time is running out.
Well, let's hope, Paul. Let's hope. I mean, the reality is there's lots of. It's like the illegal immigrant scandal. I mean, again, I think what people have got to realise, this is serious organised crime, and we've got to ask a big question: why have the National Crime Agency not busted these gangs right open? Because these gangs have been operating for 40 years up and down the country. We offered our information to the National Crime Agency and they rejected it. And believe you me, the way the research was done, and I'm not going to name the people because I don't think they necessarily want to be named, but there were people in our movement that did a massive amount of intelligence, background, open source intelligence, other intelligence work. There was lots and lots of very, very professional people involved. There was lots of very professional, I'm not going to say amateurs, but people that aren't professional in the security side of things that put their necks on the line. So all the information we had was accurate. We had up-to-date information, and the National Crime Agency and Telford Police wanted nothing to do with it. So we've got to ask why. And I have a suspicion, Paul. Now, have you ever listened to Tommy when he talks about what happened in Luton? He said the Islamists and these drug gangs, because what you've basically got is the drug gangs doing this as a little side hustle, right? Because that's the way it works. So they're dealing heroin, they're dealing cocaine. They are a mafia, right? And basically, Tommy said that the drug gangs were working hand in hand with a lot of the ISIS, Al-Qaeda sympathizers. So my suspicion is this, that MI5 or the security services have been looking at these gangs. They've infiltrated the gangs and they've said, I tell you what, you give us information on the terrorists so that we can make sure no terrorist attacks happen. Because let's be honest, MI5 has been pretty good at keeping terrorist attacks from happening. A few have happened, but nothing on the scale of what the IRA were able to pull off, right?
Yeah.
So you keep control of your communities. You keep the extremists away. You tell them they're going to have the caliphate soon enough anyway, so they don't have to worry about it. You keep the terrorists at bay, and we'll leave you to carry on with your activities. Now, I could be wrong in that, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility because it happened in Northern Ireland. So why shouldn't it happen? Why shouldn't it happen in
See,
the mainland?
I struggle to believe that that could be possible. But the older I get, the less I'm surprised about anything.
Well, I mean,
Katie,
you know, we know they made a deal with the Islamists in the early '90s to not attack the UK. So, and that's, you know, that Melanie Phillips wrote a book on it called Londonistan. So, you know, the reality is we're dealing in very, very dark with very, very sinister people. And the problem is, Paul, that it's not just the gangs of men that have done this that are to blame. It is the state for doing nothing about it. Now, whether
do you
I'm
know
wrong
what
in
I
my
was going to
suspicions,
say? Oh, do you know what, Richard? I was going to say, let me just read this out. Katie, note to oneself. Thank you. Nige, forever. Don't dismiss reform like Tommy has. Not even greater leaders will take Farage's place. Thank you, Katie. Sorry if I didn't read that quite well. Jez, cheers. Michael, thank you. Paul,
can we
thank
come back to
you.
some of these? Because
Yeah,
we're not dismissing reform. We're not doing that. I mean, what we're
no.
saying is we want. I don't care what badge is on the party. I genuinely don't. We want a political party that will do what needs to be done and take our country back. And Elon Musk has called it right. Farage is not up to the job. He's not reading the room. He's not realizing that he has to bring everybody together and everyone with him. You know, Trump won the last election because he brought everybody with him. He brought the Latino vote, he brought the black vote, he brought the white, the blue collar working class vote, and he brought the white collar vote. Farage ain't going to do that. Farage is by attacking Tommy, he's absolutely destroyed his chance of getting the white working class vote in the UK. Simple as that.
This is it for me, Richard. Let me just say this. Cheers, Paul. Thank you. Listen, perpetrators are perpetrators. And I don't care what colour they are, what race or religion they are, what God they follow. For me, a nonce is a nonce, and they should all be treated with the same disdain and the absolute full force of the law, wherever they come from, whatever community, whatever they look like. And we all hate those people. We can all agree on that. But you know, the people that I really detest are the ones that have protected them and facilitated them. Because for me, it's just as bad. You may as well be the perpetrator. And boy, oh boy, do I want to see those people brought to justice. David Lamb, thank you. It's because he has Zia Yusuf as chairman, they want the M vote. Thank you, Leona. Without Tommy, the world wouldn't know about these in the UK. I live in Canada and I'm heavily invested. Nothing to do with Farage. Leona.
Well, I think that's the other thing as well, Paul. I mean, all of this is connected. So, you know, the fact that there haven't been millions of people on the streets protesting about these gangs, and again, I'm very aware that we're going onto YouTube, and because YouTube's a child's platform, you can't say certain words, which is pathetic. But these gangs, there should have been millions of people at our rallies, not tens of thousands. And I made a speech in I think it was 2019, and I said, "Where are the men of England?" And now we're seeing them coming out en masse, but we need more. We need to see millions of people on the streets. We need to see millions of people that don't vote registering to vote. And the problem is, unless you've got a party that you can vote for that you know has your back and you know has Tommy's back, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's why Elon's reading the room and Nigel isn't. And it's not an attack on reform because, you know, attacking political parties, that's not what this is about today. This is about saving our country from absolute disaster. Because if you think it's bad now, when the demographic that's causing the problem is what they say it's 6% or whatever, right? What's it going to be like in 10 years' time as we keep the floodgates open of men from that demographic coming into our country in their hundreds of thousands? And we're going to have another 10 million that want to grab hold of young white English women and do abhorrent things to them. So this needs to be sorted now. This is the last chance we've got to sort this out peacefully, Paul. Do you know that? If we don't sort this out in the next 5 years peacefully, we have got a serious problem in this country.
Steve Edwards, thank you. Where do we go to support Tommy on the 20th of March? Well, the first one is the 1st of sorry, Richard, my mind's gone blank. 1st of February, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. Let me. Yeah, I mean,
February
no, I know what he's talking about there. 20th of March is his court case. He wants people there, right? I don't know where it is, but I'll find out, and we'll post something on that whenever we get near time. But clear the 20th of March in your diary. Tommy wants to hear everybody. He's going to the court himself, right? It's the ridiculous trumped-up terrorism charge because he wouldn't give the passcode for his mobile phone. Guess why he wouldn't give the passcode for his mobile phone? Because there were victims and survivors of these gangs. Their numbers were in his phone, and he didn't trust the police to give them the access to the phone because of the people that were actually in that phone, right? So that's the 20th of March. He wants people there. Tommy wants masses of people on the streets on the 1st of February. He wants masses of people on the streets on the 20th of March. And then in September, just clear your diary. Clear your diary for September and make sure that every Saturday in September, because we haven't got a date yet, make sure every Saturday in September you have it free, because we're coming to town, and we're coming to town big time.
Master C, thank you. How to Kiss Millions and Credibility Goodbye, a masterclass performed by Nigel Farage. Thank you. Gary's a new member. AJ Audits, good afternoon. The only problem with politicians is that they are in it for themselves. We need a government that backs the people. And this is why I speak about people like Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, self-made people. They don't need the money. They're in it for the right reasons. Thank you, Julie. Julie Mantle Booker, appreciate that. Farage has asked for this. Trump and Elon. Farage has asked for this. Trump and Elon are in touch with the people. I'm now leaning towards UKIP. Richard, you're my hero. Richard, wow. Has that made your day, Rich?
Actually, it has made my day, actually. Yeah. No, actually, James, I'm sorry. Trump made my day first, but that's made my day better.
Cheers, James. Middle East talk. Nigel doesn't want to lead. This is all very well orchestrated, isn't it? Habit's a new member. Leona's a new member. Appreciate that, guys. Jaden M. Hooper, the Gov is working with the jihadis to push us into communism, and a great replacement. Indigenous and the money laundering their capital to fund it. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing some of this. Modern women in the clown world, appreciate that. No more supers, guys, today. Appreciate that. Rob Quince, thank you. Guys, one way you can help the channel is to just subscribe. Over 50% of people that watch this today will not be channel subscribers. So if you could do that, that would really, I'd really appreciate it. And give me a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get to 10,000 thumbs up. Paul, can you please give the show back? Can you please give the show back to Paul? Angie's a new member. Oh, look, Richard's great. Right. So no more supers now, guys. Thanks for that. Let me try and get, if I can, to the bottom of the regular chat. There's about 8,000 messages, I believe. The last look I had a look at the poll was 75% are backing Ben Habib over Nigel to take over as leader of reform. John Thorpe, no relation. I've said for months Nigel needs to grow a pair. He started looking like Starmer, trying to say all the right things to save his own face. Enter Ben Habib. Juniper, what happens? What did Farage do? You'll have to go back and watch from the beginning, I'm afraid. Thousands of messages coming in there. Chris Mallinson, if Ben Habib takes charge and shows full support for Tommy, the lions in this country would begin to roar. So I'm going to go through as many of the, as much as a chat as I can do later on, guys. Richard, we've been live for an hour and 15 minutes. It's been one hell of an afternoon. Let me just have a little latest look at what's going on. Is there anything coming in? There's a tweet here.
Let's have a look. So, Elon, this was in response to Ben Habib's tweet. It was, Ben Habib said, had you been anyone else at Reform Party UK, you would now have been disavowed as that lot, a term coined to define supporters of Tommy Robinson. But you are the richest man in the world. The contempt case against TR was brought by the Attorney General. Then he goes on to say a few other things. So Elon's retweeting Ben, which is great. And I think Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, Paul, because it's certainly been an interesting afternoon. I mean, I must admit, I did have a little bit of a giggle whenever I heard that Elon had tweeted that Nigel should resign. But I think Nigel Farage is in a very difficult position now, and
Well,
he could sort
I
it
think
out.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will. Richard, I'm going to disagree with you to some degree. Look, I don't take any pleasure in seeing the demise in anyone. I was looking at Nigel and reform as our big chance, and I still think that reform could be our big chance, but not with Nigel in charge. Guys, don't forget to sign the pledge, please. That is running across the bottom of the screen. Signing the pledge is absolutely vital.
Here's the thing, Paul, right? Here's the thing about this, because this today is a prime example why everybody that's joined Reform as a member should sign the pledge. And I'll tell you why. It shows how fragile everything is. Now, one of two things is going to happen. Either Nigel resigns from the leadership of Reform, or Reform will blow up, will explode. That's the reality. Sorry, three. Nigel apologizes. He ain't going to do that. He's made that clear. He resigns, probably not going to do that either. Reform implodes. That's the three things that are going to happen. So we need something in the background. We've got UKIP waiting in the wings. We've got whatever Ben's going to do waiting in the wings. We don't know what Ben's intentions are. And we've got the pledge. And the pledge, to be honest with you, is extremely stable because, it's the ideology's there. Everybody knows what we believe in the pledge. It's not a political party. It's never going to be a political party. But it can be somewhere that like-minded people can gather and sign up to and share. And if we get up to that million, if we get up to 1 million people signed up to the pledge, Paul, that's a massive thing. And by the way, just to update people, what I've been doing, there's a friend of mine, and she's a retired lady, and she's basically been creating a database of every single MP in the United Kingdom, what party they're from, what majority they had in the last election. So what that does, it gives us, because obviously we have all the beginning of the postcodes for everybody that signs up to the pledge. So it means that we can target specific areas coming up to elections and go to those MPs and say, do you agree with what's in the pledge? And if they say no, we'll find the candidate that does. And that's what we've always said that we do from the very beginning. So the pledge isn't just an exercise in getting people to sign up to something. There's a very practical reason for what we're doing. And it is going to give that ideological and moral authority to politics in the United Kingdom. It's a very important project. And like I say, you can be in a political party and still sign the pledge or join the pledge or whatever. We're apolitical in that sense. Paul could be in Reform, I could be in UKIP, but the pledge is vital. You're muted there, Paul.
Another update. Elon Musk has just tweeted, I have not met Rupert Lowe, but his statements online that I have read so far make a lot of sense. Well, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Someone's just sent me this, and I'm afraid it's a very accurate description of the situation. Police officers serving around the country, understand this. We want to support you. We want to respect you. But this is how the public feel about you. Look at this. Let that sink in.
Yep.
Let that sink in. That's how the
Paul,
British public...
one of the films, in one of the films we made, we had photographs of the police in Telford surrounded by the grooming gangs, kneeling, and the grooming gangs had their hands on top of the heads of the police officers. The police officers were kneeling in submission to these, I'm not going to say the word, it nearly came out there, but these grooming gangs, and they had their hands on the heads of these police officers. If those police officers didn't know who those men were, they weren't doing the job, because we knew who everybody was in Telford after a week of our investigations up there. So this is I think this is the biggest law and order scandal this country has ever seen.
100%,
my goodness.
100%, 1 million%. Guys, if any one of you want to write to Tommy, His details are at the bottom there. You use emailaprisoner.com with the following details. Jot those down or take a picture of it. And I want to just say, Richard, I think it's important to say that, look, we are only attacking those people who have been involved in these groups. We're not attacking an entire community. Well, I'm not, for sure. I'm not going to attack an entire community because they're not all guilty. And we should point that out. But I will say this, people within that community need to start calling out their own. They need to unite with us for a safer United Kingdom for all of our kids.
Well, I think we've got to be. I think we've got to be realistic as well, Paul. And it's all right to say that all the time. We do say that a lot. Not, of course, not everybody in that community has been involved in that. But 1 in 75 Pakistani men have been interviewed about that specific crime. 1 in 75 in the UK. When we did our investigations in the town that we were working in, there was 12 people I think had been prosecuted. I'm not sure if they all went to prison. Can't remember. There were 200 plus suspects in Telford alone. Out of and the population,
wow,
as far as I remember then, that the population of that community was about 3,000 people. 200 of them were named by the survivors that we were speaking to. That's just the survivors that we're speaking to. So the scale of it is completely off the chart. And one of the girls, I was watching the episode 2 again yesterday, and I did the preliminary interview with that girl, and she was attacked by literally hundreds of different men over the years that she was through that. Her life was absolutely a physical health, a mental health. She had children, just absolutely horrific. Her father died young. It was just the effect that has on the families, and it's organized crime.
Rich, I struggle to listen to this stuff, to be honest with you guys. I'm going to end the show this afternoon by thanking everyone for joining us, thanking Richard for joining us, who is always amazing value. Still over 17,000 people watching. Please, please, please give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. I'm going to end the show just to avoid any confusion. I hope you don't mind me ending the show with the same short statement that I opened the show with for anyone that has joined us late and didn't quite get what this is all about. And I started the show today with the following breaking news, everyone. News that will shock the British political world and in particular Reform UK after Elon Musk has called for Nigel Farage to resign as the party leader, telling his millions of followers that Nigel is not the right man for the job. Now, I know that many of you will be confused. Some of you will be disappointed and may still feel that Nigel is our last chance. But let me assure you, he is not. The British people are bigger than any one man, and Nigel has proven himself to be a chancer and a backstabber over the last 24 hours, proving once again that he will throw anyone under a bus if he feels that it will benefit him. He has underestimated us. He has underestimated Elon Musk. He underestimated the anger of the British people. And worst of all, he's underestimated the love and respect that the working class in particular, but also the masses, has for Tommy. That is his mistake and his alone, along with Richard Tice. They are responsible for this mess and their own downfall, and no one else. And Nigel's supporters can moan all they like. We have warned them, and we have warned them time again, and we've warned everyone, including Nigel himself, that if he didn't come to the table with the people, that the people would look elsewhere. Now he knows we were not joking, and he's found out he's not the only one with inroads to Elon Musk. General Flynn once said, country before self, a policy that we and Tommy has always followed and Nigel has ignored. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's been a fabulous best part of an hour and a half, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Richard, all the very best, my friend. You've been amazing. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Have a great weekend, everyone.
good stuff.
Bye-bye for now.
You too.